Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Flynn, and I'm here with
Scott Lang.
And we are the Band Dads. Here to bring you a podcast about something that we care very dearly about, which is music education and band.
Some of you are here because you want to learn about all things band. Some of you are here because you want to see a train wreck. And the answer is yes to both of those. We don't care why you're here. We're going to answer all the questions. We're going to say the things you're thinking. We're going to debunk all the myths.
Yep. This is the Band Dads Podcast.
The podcast by and for confused band parents.
Nice. You said the tagline.
Can't we keep computers out of drill design? Why don't we have the little men on a board that we move around? That is going to be the eternal conversation about everything. Is the older way was better, the newer way is bad. And if someone says, can't we keep AI out of drum corps? Okay, you don't want to map out best routes to use economic fuel? You don't want to look at best ways to budget. You don't want to look at best practices for show sites versus remuneration versus miles traveled.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
Folks, older is not better. Older is just older.
Nice. Older is just older.
God, I don't even know why we have indoor plumbing. Why can't we just go out in an outhouse like we used to? That was way better.
Well, you don't think there's some nostalgia, though? Like, let me ask you a question. Do you think that we've lost...
I have no nostalgia for an outhouse.
Not for an outhouse. But... You know, as somebody who grew up, so I was born in 1980. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s.
I can turn off the air conditioning right now if you want to have nostalgia to what it was like in the 1970s.
There's something I think to be said, though, for, I don't know if it's the removal of creativity and imagination, but, you see a lot of these comparisons in social media posts about, like what a McDonald's used to look like versus what it looks like now. It was bright colored. It was like fun looking, like it was geared towards kids and imagination. And now it's brown and modern and boring.
It was geared towards obesity and child abductions.
Okay, but it still is. It just charges more. But
that's true.
But
it's absolutely true. But notice they don't bring out Grimace, and Ronald makes a lot fewer appearances.
I think there is something to be said for, things have gotten more. I get the modern look of things, and I don't know if it's just design element, but things are a little more boring these days.
I do. Well, I don't disagree with that. Like, it's not when I say old isn't bad. I love older architecture. I love older music. I love the music of Mozart and Granger more so than I like modern music, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I do like modern music, but I'm a more melodic, harmonic person by ear. So I get that, but I just think there's a lot of natural curmudgeonness that occurs with age.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are people who would say, let's look at Marching Man. Well, why? I don't know why. I don't understand this show. Why can't they just make straight lines and play John Philip Sousa anymore? Okay. Yeah, and wear spats and look up what those are if you don't know what those are.
I don't.
And they're the little white things that covered your black shoe.
That's called a spat.
And overlays and the big Q-tip hats. Like, do you want to go back to that? Well, no, but I want to go back to the good old days. No, they were good old days for you.
Yeah. What's
happening right now will be the good old days for children in 10 years.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm not a believer in, I want to get back to, and the thing I always just say, it's completely unrelated to this podcast, but I'm going to say it anyway, which is, I shouldn't have to have someone explain the show to me. I said, so you think the kids should do a show so simple that they do it 64 times in a season and you understood it the first time?
Right.
It's not about you. It's about the kids. It's about the art form. Someone had to explain Degas and Monet to someone at some point. Someone had to explain Salvador Dali. Well, you still have to explain Salvador Dali.
Sure.
But the things that we considered modern classical art, Rite of Spring was booed when it was premiered in Stravinsky. It was considered heretic. It had too much minor melodic content. And now we look at it and go, it's a work of beauty. So just hold on to your drawers, people.
I mean, wasn't it just last year about the controversy of DCI adding like one woodwind into their shows or something? This was just last year. I think they brought it back. Oh, I'm not mistaken. Just last season.
George Hopkins from the Cadets has been trying to get it for 15 years.
Yeah.
And he was the first guy to get drum corps to go from 135 to 150. And people are like, no, it's 135. Well, folks, 3 charter buses is 150. It makes more economic sense. You have 15 more playing people. He was one of the first people to advocate getting bugles out of the key of G, because every instrument maker makes every instrument in the key of B flat. Drum and bugle corps until 10 years ago was in the key of G. They had to make specialized instruments just for drum and bugle corps. It wasn't economically viable, but it was the good old days, Chris.
Anyway, there's something to be said for nostalgia sometimes.
There is. You're old. I'm nostalgic for you.
Hey, look at that. Huh? Look at that. What are we talking about today?
It's folks. Welcome to. It's not season 4. It's season, I don't know, like
3.5
pi. I don't know. 3.14. Isn't that 3.14?
I could. Yeah.
Do you know how much of pi do you know? 3.14.
1.7. I think that's it.
There we go. It's like, just be on me.
Yeah.
Because it's the summer, and so we thought we'd just put together some casual content to share with you. You'll be hearing from the band mom. You'll be hearing from some outtakes and some TikTok. But we wanted to talk about, the old expression is, well, what are you doing this summer? The question to a band program is, what are you doing this summer?
I would say we can't. What was it? The bad band directors. Not long ago, we asked that question. You kind of laughed. I was like, that's what I'm always thinking to myself: is what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? So, to the point is do we get the summer off? Do we get to hang out and relax? Or what are we doing, Skyline? So what happens in the summer for bands? So we know what band camp is. So we're talking about that period from the time basically school ends until band camp begins.
Okay. So, and I think there's 3 different points. There's what are the boosters doing, which I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
What are the kids doing and what is the director doing? So I want to start with the kids.
Okay.
So I was thinking about this, and Chris and I have the unique misfortune of not only living in the hottest place on the planet, and I kid you not, folks, I think our school district might be among the earliest school districts in the country in terms of returning to school.
When it goes back to school, yeah.
So that we go back on like the 13th or 14th of July. And my nephew teaches in New York. They get out June 24th. We go back like 10 days later.
That's true. Yeah.
And so, the question is, like, how do you approach the summer for the kids? And the thing I was thinking about today is, I think it depends on where you live.
Okay.
Like our kids, and God bless them, I think it's great. They're doing chop shops once a week.
Yes. What's a chop shop? So people understand what's a chop shop.
They get together on Tuesday nights, and a lot of bands do them, and they play. It's not mandatory. You show up, you play. If you can't, you can't. And the whole point is, I'm going to keep my chops in shape. And my point back would be, you're only out of school for 5 weeks. They're not out of shape.
Gotcha.
But that's very different than someone who's out on Memorial Day doesn't go back to Labor Day.
That's
your chops are out of shape.
Yeah, that's a long period of time.
I think, as schools start to really differentiate what a summer looks like. I mean, back in my day, it was 3 months, and there were 2 sets of summer school, and band camp was 2 weeks before school, which meant band camp was August 15th. And now for us, band camp is July 8th, July 7th, I think this year.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you have to acknowledge that different schools and different start times and different programs means summer looks different for kids. In Indiana, summer parade band is huge.
Summer parade band?
Yeah. And there's a bunch of county fairs in Indiana.
Yeah.
All summer long.
Okay.
And some bands, they don't do halftime competitive shows. They do summertime. So their marching band season is May 1st through August 1st. And then they go back to concert band. They don't even do marching band. So their summer looks really, really different.
Interesting.
There are places on the East Coast in which, because of they want to keep the economy going with beaches and theme parks, it's against the law to start school before Labor Day.
Labor Day, yeah.
So I just think before we talk about what are you doing this summer, you have to talk about, I think, like, for our band director to say, well, you take a nice break and get away. Well, no, he's back in 4 weeks. He doesn't get a break.
That's true.
I mean, versus when I taught, and it wasn't that long ago, but when I taught, I would take just 2 weeks and not even go near the band room.
Gotcha.
Then I would start gearing up and planning through the show and rehearsal schedules. But then again, now you start that in January.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
I mean, he's already got the first arrangement done. He's got the drill done. We've got the percussion parts. The kids have read it down, and it's not even June yet.
Right.
That would have never happened 25 years ago.
Yeah, gotcha.
So talking about the kids, I guess, I would be curious to hear your thoughts, Chris. Like, what is too early? What is too much?
Yeah.
Is there anything?
I don't necessarily think, and I know you're to your point of like overworking them, giving them a break sometimes, which I think I understand. The way that I see the way that we rehearse, at least the way, again, our approach is, which I think is probably similar to a lot of other competitive, marching bands anyway. At least it's a couple things. It keeps them involved in something.
Absolutely.
Right? So just in the same way that, you want your kid involved in something to distract them from doing other things that are not, as advantageous for them. It keeps them involved in something. It keeps them involved with, there's a decent group of those peers that they may not connect with outside of band as well. So like they have a good friend group, but they're not always connected
And
to
it's
those
also a
kids
chance
outside
for
of
the freshmen to slowly dip their toe in the water.
Right. So that was going to be my next point, which is, we talked about last season, or I think at the beginning, one of the very interesting things about marching band is you basically hit the reset button every year and you relearn the same things year after year after year.
Correct.
But your perspective on how you learn them is different based on your experience level in the band itself. So for example, those kids so my daughter Ava will be a senior this year. She'll be in leadership for the second year. She'll be a section leader again. But, I'm already listening to her talk about conversations for, like a chop shop, as we talked about. They're not really doing anything intense. She's literally showing her freshman kids how to properly mount the sousaphone, like how to pick it up, how to lay it down softly. What's the care for the instrument? Like, so to your point, this is the modeling, right? This is her trying to help lead them into, this is even just how to take care of this giant piece of metal that you're going to carry around on the field. So I love that mentoring and that support is there for them now, because I do understand that, and I think we've done a good job at the way we schedule our band camp to pull it back a little bit and not make it quite as intense as it used to be. But hitting the ground running and making those kids feel successful through band camp, I think carries a lot of momentum. So I kind of like the idea of now we're doing the modeling, we're doing the basic stuff, we're doing the maintenance stuff now. So that way, when it comes to band camp, we can be productive and actually learn things that are going to be applicable to our marching band season.
So we talked about different start dates and different schools and different schedules and different end dates. And that we're not even starting to talk about the August 1st rule for Texas, which is you can't even start drill until August 1st.
Right.
But here's, I'm heading to a top 12 program tomorrow to work with them. And this program does a 2-week camp the day school ends.
Okay.
And they do 2 full weeks. The freshmen don't even sit down and play a note with the upperclassmen till week 2.
Okay.
And the director's philosophy, I thought this was fascinating. He said, it's kind of like a badge of honor. You earn your spot to go sitting with the rest of the band. So he does long tones and lip slurs, and here's how you put your instrument together, and here's what our warm-up books looks like. And the upperclassmen are working on technique and focusing on the show. And so, there are all sorts of different ways to approach summer. Yeah. Not every band camp. So they do 2 weeks of band camp. And I know several programs that do this, and several top 12 programs. They do 2 weeks of just making sure who's coming to band, who's registered, who's going to show up.
Right.
Slowly getting you, for lack of a better term, indoctrinated into what the band is all about. Then they disappear. They don't do any chop shops.
Interesting.
They just disappear for 4 or 5 weeks and then come back the last 2 weeks in July.
Gotcha.
So if you're listening to this, you have to think about your geography. You have to think about your school calendar.
Sure.
You have to think about how competitive your marching band is. You have to think about numbers. You have to think about parents' vacation schedules. It's not as simple as it seems.
No, it's not. And I think that just like anything, we've said this multiple times, give your program some grace in terms of the way they approach it, because you don't understand necessarily the nuances as to why they do it the way that they do. But just because you don't like the way they do it doesn't mean it's wrong either. So give them some grace and some ability to run with what they think is going to be best. And the best thing I would say is, if you see that routine changed up, that's actually a positive. Because I feel like that means the director understands, hey,
he's evolving.
Correct. That's the best way I would look at it as well. So they've learned something in the process themselves. They're making a change in their approach because ultimately...
But when I did it, I didn't do anything until band camp. That was my thing. The kids got the summer off. If I were to go back in teaching, I would not do it that way again, because I would have too many first day of band. Where's this freshman? Mm-hmm. So I know I would handle band camp differently now, 20 years later, than I did 20 years ago.
Sure.
But so we know when we're talking about the kids, that's one component, and that involves the directors, that involves the parents, but we're talking about the kids. So now I want to talk to you about the parent, the booster component.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about the band director component at the end. So we said there's 3 components. There's summer for the kids, summer for the band director, and summer for the parents. So I was out of town last week, and there was a big summit at my house because Chris is now president of the band booster boards because he needed one more thing to do with his life.
I did, apparently.
In addition to his full-time career as a
data analyst. Yeah.
I just had to get that in. It's been a couple episodes. And running 5 Deuce Media and doing podcasts and taking pictures and videos. And I happened to be out of town. I was so pissed. I wrote, because the whole booster board came over along with the band staff, and it was in my house, and I wrote, all my favorite people are in my house talking about my favorite subject, and I'm gone.
Poor Scott.
Well, yes, thank you. Wah, wah.
It's not like we planned it on a day that you weren't there on purpose or anything.
I knew you did it that way. I knew it, Chris. I even told my wife, I think it was out of spite. I think Miles just didn't want me to hear my opinion about anything. I was going to hunker down and
confirm nor deny your
I was going to pull up a chair and be a part of that meeting, even though I'm not on the board. So talk to me about that meeting, and not that specific meeting, but
Sure.
what is the booster president? What are you doing over the summer to prepare for the fall?
There's a lot of moving pieces within an organization, and certainly I can speak the organization of our size, which is our overall band program is just right around 200 kids, and our marching band program is right around 120. It's a lot of kids that there's a lot of different tasks that you need to make sure are fulfilled, and the way that we do that, we run these different tasks through committees. So let me take a step back. In terms of the structure of the boosters themselves, there's a president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, and then we have one member at large, which helps kind of, some of the
position
voting
you guys
initiatives.
need? Treasurer's husband.
Treasurer's husband?
That would be my job.
I don't know if we need to be that official or not. So you can just tag along if you'd like. But I do get to work with the incredible Leah Lang as my treasurer, thank goodness, because she's excellent at her job.
Way better than me.
But we're at the planning phase at this point of the year. Not planning in the way that, we need to plan things for fall because the show's done, right? The music is picked. Like all those things are in place and they should have been a long time ago. But now it's the boosters, it's how do we fulfill getting this thing done successfully this season? And the number one place that it starts, and we're in a unique situation for our boosters that is probably similar in some places, probably not. We are a part of a nonprofit organization, but we have the benefit of that nonprofit organization being owned by our school district itself.
So let me explain that just really quickly. For those who don't know, this is something that is becoming more and more frequent across the country. Mm-hmm. Frankly, I'm not a big fan of it because it adds a level of bureaucracy to things and costs, but I understand why. Where the district has its own 501(c)(3) and all nonprofit entities in the district, sports, activities, athletics, parents, have to operate under that arm. And just really quick to give you, I don't like it as bureaucracy, complexity, and frankly, I don't think it's in the band director's district. But now flip it and look at 62 elementary schools,
right?
And protections of financial oversight.
Correct.
And theft.
That's the important part. Yep.
So I get why they're doing it, but when he says there's an oversight, this is becoming a model that if you're not familiar with, is becoming more and more prevalent throughout the country.
Gotcha. And I will tell you that I haven't operated outside of an organization that's set up that way. So I would tell you that yes, the benefit for us is the protections are basically built in. It doesn't mean that we have expectations. We have deliverables to this parent organization, to our school district booster organization. So as long as we meet those deliverables, we're in a good place, and we're following the rules per se. But one of those things that's required at this time of the year is you need to get a budget on paper. You need to get your organization to approve that budget so you can have it submitted by the beginning of the fiscal year. So we follow a fiscal calendar year, right? So July kind of resets that fiscal year. So we're at the point where we have to make sure we submit a budget for our organization to this parent organization by July. So that's what we were doing. We were sitting down and kind of talking through where we were last year. And again, it helps to have a fantastic treasurer like Leah Lang who keeps tracks of things so well that we can sit down and look at, here's where we were last year. This is what we got. This is our plan for this year. How do we compare those two things? Let's come up with a budget based on that. And at the end of the day, adjust numbers up and down and say, this is the amount of money it's going to take to run.
Were there disagreements on money allocation?
I don't think so. I think if you've got people involved on this level of wanting to be on the booster board, they're generally adept enough to be engaged enough to understand a lot of the nuances of things. So I don't think so.
How much? And I think I have a perspective from the outside as a treasurer's husband, but maybe not completely. How much of that budgeting process is driven by the director?
I mean, here's what I would say. I would say the vast majority of it. Some of it's just chance because it's out of the band director's control to some extent. So I would say probably 80 to 85% is the band director's control, just because you're following through with, again, their vision of things, the way they've planned the year for the trips you're going to take and the cost of travel, and all of those things are a part of that budget. Some of those things that are to chance are, if you want to host a marching band competition at your school, that's not a guarantee, right? You might put in a bid for it. So whether or not you get selected for it is kind of out of their hands. So I guess it's still at their direction that we would apply to host one. So there's still some control in that way. But ultimately, I would say we're still supporting the structure as a whole. That really the only independence comes from, again, some of those tasks that the band director doesn't necessarily need to be involved in, meaning that, when it comes to the fundraiser portion of our year, for example, the band directors don't need to tell us how to fundraise the money. That's up to the boosters to figure out. what's the most successful way that we can run a campaign to raise the money our program
That's a really
needs
good point.
to
I mean,
be
I knew that,
successful.
but I never thought about it that way, that the band director doesn't choose how the money's raised.
Correct.
He chooses how it's spent.
There might be places where the band director has some say in that.
Right. Yeah.
They might like bringing mattresses into their band room once a year. And,
If you do a mattress sale, I need you to contact me and explain it to me. Listen, I know all about it. I get it. I know Texas, Oklahoma, but you still got to explain to me, because never once did I think, sweet, it's time for a new mattress. Let's head down to the band room.
And there is one, the one that I will say that we do consistently.
Mulch and manure spreading.
Yeah.
That's a big one in Texas too.
Gotcha.
If you want to buy your cow poop, you call the band.
The one thing that's the one fundraiser that's generally owned by our directors that we support as boosters, but it's at their direction, is the car wash stuff. And the reason why is it's more of a school run fundraiser than it is a booster supported one. So they get to keep the money directly. And it's kind of a bit of a different process.
So let me ask you this question. Does philosophy, goals drive the budget, or does the budget drive philosophy and goals?
Oh, man, it's really hard to land exactly on one side or the other, to be honest with you. I would like to say that we try and make everything happen possible. There may be times where we have to take a step back because of the budget, but ideally we're trying to find ways to make things happen. We're in a position.
So you think philosophy, you would lean towards, hopefully, that philosophy and goals
Correct.
Drive the budget.
Yes.
Okay, I buy that.
Ideally it would, right? The thing that comes to mind is, like I said, there are just some things that are out of your control, right? And I don't want to get into the weeds too much here, but I can tell you one of the significant ways that we had to be more cautious in our budgeting this year is the way that we anticipate. Let's say the income that we received from hosting shows last year is probably going to be quite different this year, meaning that the type of show that we're hosting is going to be different. We don't expect it to be as large as the show we had last year. So when you're looking at how much money we have to work with, we had to be a little more conservative in
do you
our
read
estimates.
so in talking to my wife, do you read the environment? And so, like, my wife is very concerned. She was talking about the fundraiser, because she's in charge of that in addition to being the treasurer. And she's like, I think our fundraiser is going to be down 7% because of the economy and the cost of gas and blah, blah, blah. And I looked at her, I said, I disagree with you. I think it's going to be up 5%. And my theory was because it's repetitive. It's the same fundraiser we did last year. There's a level of comfortability from familiarity with it.
Right.
And we don't know what the answer is yet. We won't know till August. But do you guys sit down and go, given current environment, we had a budget of X $1,000 last year. We need to think about an overall 5% reduction.
Yes. So here's what I would say. I think it depends on the individuals involved. You're talking to somebody who day to day is a
data analyst.
So there's no question that's
pain in the ass.
That's at the front of my mind. So
that was my first thought when he said who someone is.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, there's no question that going into that meeting, that's at the front of my mind is I expect based on maybe some more stiffness based on the way people are spending currently. Cost of goods is up for families across the board.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
In my mind, I expect people to be more conservative. So doing some sort of adjustment is what I would do professionally to account for something like that. So to me, it only made sense to at least introduce that into our conversation as a booster board. Now, I will say I don't think we took as conservative as approach as maybe I thought we would initially in the conversation. And that's where I think it takes a good open-minded group of peers to literally talk through why or why not they believe this is the case. And to your point, I think that, and after thinking about it more, I did come around to the fact that we've done a really good job at branding what we do. And for people that don't know, like, that's really important to me for what we do for our band. And branding is a big thing that I believe in across the board. And I think at one point there was conversation even about maybe changing our fundraiser last year in a way that I was like you could add to it, but don't change the foundation of it. Don't change the baseline. Don't change the branding of it, because if we can get people familiar with this thing and they can expect it every year,
100%,
then it's automatic when they see it. They go, "Oh, I know what this is. I'm good."
Yes, I couldn't agree with you.
Right. So
hear that lesson, booster parents. When you have something that's successful, like a mattress sale, for God knows why, but you run it on the same day, in the same building,
right.
You call it the same thing, because then 6 months in advance, when I'm thinking we need a new mattress, I think to wait for 6 months for that. So
sure.
I completely agree. And here's a question. It's kind of outside this podcast, but economically speaking, if we've got to tighten our belts, which I totally agree with, I'll cut back on going out for dinner, but I won't come back on my kid.
Sure.
So I think it's an interesting conversation is yes, there are cutbacks in our economy, in our world, but Are they cutbacks, and where are they?
Yeah, no, that's where it's hard to predict,
Right.
And when you're looking at a budget, again, for an organization like this and all that we're involved in, there's just so many intricate levels of, again, whether it be running those all of the things that go into running a home show. Like, folks, you don't necessarily think about the fact that you have to have a group of people who's going to be responsible for feeding the judging staff. Like, there's so many different, somebody who's got to order the trophies for it. Like, there's so many different levels,
park the cars,
intricacies,
take the tickets, print the tickets, run
just
concessions.
in terms of the things that cost money, right? Like, feeding your kids. How many events do we need to feed our kids? We didn't do it on this day last year, and it turns out we probably needed it. So let's forecast this many days this year. And when we travel to this event, we're going to be out this many hours. As a result, we should account for that. So
how many, because I did see that. We called Feed the Bears, and I see they added 2 more Feed the Bears events. How much changes year over year in the budgeting process?
I would say the majority of it did not change significantly, because I think overall, and this is where if you do a good job budgeting, at the end of the year, when your numbers settle, your budget was a healthy one, and you came out ahead of it anyway, which is where we found ourselves last year. So we're comfortable being able to repeat a lot of it because we were already in a pretty good position to have a little extra to work with if we needed to, and things like that within that budget. So I would say the majority of it, not a lot. So we need to make some tweaks, because again, and this is where hopefully you have a good open-minded group of people and directors who were able to identify. When we went to these 2 competitions last year, the timing of it worked out where we needed to have food for kids, and it didn't work out the way we wanted it to. We got to make sure that we add that in this year. Versus, this is the philosophy. Let's do the right thing to make sure that this is accounted for. Versus, no. This is what we agreed to spend. We're not spending over that.
Right.
So they could bring their own food instead, right? So the majority of things I would say are pretty similar. As long as the organization size is the same, I think you can support them in a very similar way. The income stuff is the stuff that's kind of the questionable stuff. You can't predict how much.
When you're thinking about planning, because that's what we're talking about, whether you're a band director or whether you're the band boosters, you're in the planning phases of summer, which is what we're talking about now in the summer episode. I look at it as 2 things: budgeting and staffing.
Yeah.
Am I missing
Absolutely.
something?
No, I think that's a fair way to look at it, because the staffing side of it and the planning that we're doing for staffing, again, is you don't necessarily realize, like, shout out again to our 2 incredible chairs who are running our uniform committee. So again, we're using uniforms that we acquired from another group. So they have to go through, make sure that the sizing makes sense. Do we have to wash anything?
Yeah.
Do we have to distribute? So even accounting for it right now, that group is going through an inventory process to understand what we even have available for our uniforms, because as of this one Saturday, they get basically 1 day, ideally, to really fit the kids into their uniforms and assign them uniforms for the whole season. So this entire time now is the run rate of when all those kids show up on that day, because our goal as boosters also is to not interrupt learning as much as possible, right? Not interrupt the process of what the director's trying to accomplish in their camps and whatnot, to get all of this ready now. So when the kids show up on that day, we're good to go and we didn't miss any details.
If you're listening to this, it's an interesting thing. So Robin from the Booster Hub talked about this. She said, I went from a volleyball group of 12 girls and 10 parents, and we had to account for maybe 60 hours of volunteerism. And she said, I look at bands and they're accounting for 6,000 hours of volunteerism, because just to get the uniforms ready is probably 12 hours of work times 2, I think it's 3 ladies this year. So you're talking about 36 man hours of labor.
That's just the
To
preparation.
be prepared
Correct.
to hand out a uniform.
Correct.
And there will be 5 ladies or guys.
I think the actual staff is, so the day that they do the uniform fitting, it's 12 to 15 people that cover 3 to 4 hour shifts over a course of 10 to 12 hours.
So do you know what a Gantt chart is?
I do.
Yeah. So explain what a Gantt chart is for
I don't know that I want to explain it.
Okay. So a Gantt chart is really interesting. It's a construction document. And the way it is, okay, I'm going to put up the drywall on Thursday. Well, if I put up the drywall on Thursday, it has to be roughed in electrical on Wednesday. If it has to be roughed in by electrical on Wednesday, then that means we have to have framing in by Tuesday. If we're going to have framing in by Tuesday, concrete has, and it starts at the end date and it works backward on every single step to the start date. And it puts it not only in order of sequence, but in length of time. Framing takes 2.5 weeks. So I can't bring my plumber in for 2.5 weeks. And we do plumbing before we do fixtures, and we do fixtures before we do electric, and we do electric before we do drywall. So it's, when I look at Marching Man, I actually shared a Gantt chart of a Marching Man season with Miles.
Okay.
And I said, okay, if we know state, and it was not from a booster perspective, it was instructional.
Sure.
Okay, if we know state is November 18th, your first drill chart should go out on July 22nd.
Gotcha.
And I know that based on length and difficulty and fall break, and we have to stick this in here, and I accounted for 3 rain days. And so I just think when I hear all this about working backwards to be prepared to volunteer, I think of a Gantt chart.
No, you're absolutely right. And I had this conversation with one of our committee chairs recently to say something like, ideally, what I would like to see this season is us being able to get a volunteer sign up out 30 days prior to an event. To me, that's kind of the benchmark. If we can start at 30 days out, then we at least have an understanding and we can do enough communication rather than do like a 2 weeks or 10 days and find ourselves at the last minute or people doubling up on shifts, like being able to, because that's the other thing that I think people are scared about. And we're going to reference Robin apparently a bunch in this episode, but Robin also reiterated not to be scared to over communicate things. And I agree with that.
Oh, I'm an over communicator.
Yeah. We do have parents that get scared that they're bothering other parents, because you know what? Generally, those parents that are thinking that they're bothered by it are the parents that are involved that only need to hear it once or twice. And they're good and they've got the message and they understand the direction. But we're trying to reach the other parents. We're trying to reach the parents that are not involved as that 10 to 15% are. And sometimes they need 5, 6, 7 reminders before they see the one that tells them, oh yeah, I didn't sign up for this yet and I wanted to go help. I don't want to lose that person by just sending that sign up out twice and going, if they saw it, they saw it. If not, then not. Like to me, that's not strategic whatsoever. So that's a lot of what we do, but we really do depend on, and it's an interesting balance, Scott. And luckily we haven't run into this in our band yet, but I could certainly see in places where sometimes it is such a struggle to get help from the boosters that you want to have the right person in the right place and the person that's a strategic thinker to help you accomplish the thing you want to do. But it's sometimes you're just so hard up for help. You got to take what you can get too, right? And that's not necessarily the case for us. So I don't say that for our band whatsoever, but I know that that's a struggle for people. And I know it makes it that, that much harder for them. But that, to me, that's how this works. And the way I see it is the organization of, as the president, it's not my job to necessarily, have the final say or really have that much influence over anything. It's to make sure all the parts are doing what they're supposed to be so we can achieve success as a group as a whole. So
think about it. So we've talked about from the student perspective, what is the summer like? Talked about from the booster perspective, it's about planning and staffing, and it's about strategic. And, as Chris said, you put the goals first and budget for them second. Is ideally, it doesn't always work that way, but ideally.
Yep.
But I think the same thing is probably true for a band director. It's about staffing and it's about budget.
Okay.
The difference is their planning process started last January.
Right, for sure.
It's not their budgeting process. Miles was budgeting. Our band director was budgeting for props, budgeting for arrangers, budgeting for drill writers in January, even if he might not be expending those monies till May or whatever. But it's the same thing, staffing. And I do mean not just about your staff that you're hiring, but it's also about staffing in terms of kids. Like, who do I need in the building rehearsing for how long, at what time, at what sequence?
That's a really good point that I'm not sure people think about. Yeah.
To hit my objective.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. So there was I would go to band camp and we'd learn, and this is a whole nother conversation. We'd learn all our basics, fundamentals, music, and we'd learn 20 pages of drill. And there was a school down the street that never handed out a page of drill until the first day of school, 2.5 weeks later. And they looked great at the end of the season. And I always went, well, God, they're rehearsing less than me and they look better. Their staffing and their budgeting of time and resources is different than mine. I got to figure out what they're doing because they're doing it better than I am.
Interesting.
You look at the Texas, the 8-hour rule, which is, folks who don't know, you can't start drill till August 1st. So we will start drill on July 10th.
Right.
Okay. They will start it 3 weeks later. We rehearse roughly 8.5 to 9 hours a week. On a normal week, they rehearse 8. So we're rehearsing 12% more and starting 3 weeks earlier. And Chris, who is better, a Texas band or us?
Ooh, do I say that out loud?
Yeah, you got to.
I don't know if I can say it out loud.
Yeah, you can.
I'm always impressed by what the Texas groups do. The Texas groups are on a different level. For sure.
And so the thing, and this isn't to my band, this is to me. I'm always saying to myself, well, then they're doing it. They're allocating their time and their resources better than me.
They're more efficient.
And so that's what, if I'm sitting here in summer and it's June, now I've already budgeted my drill and budgeted my music and budgeted, all of that in January. What I'm budgeting now are time and staffing.
Sure.
Like, how much time and do I allot it? Like, maybe I used to give 45 minutes to warm ups. Maybe I got to take it down to 30. Maybe, Wednesday nights was indoors. Maybe it's got to be outdoors.
Gotcha.
Maybe it's about how you allocate your resources to be more efficient. Because I have fair confidence we're not going to add a ton of rehearsal hours to the schedule.
Yeah.
And I have fair confidence we're not going to start earlier than July 7th. So now how are we going to use that time?
Okay, now the question though I have is, as a parent, as a band director, who are you using to help you in that process? Who helps you accomplish all of this planning?
Most of the time, no one.
Okay.
And if you ask me how many band directors think like this, I don't know that I have an answer. I know that all band directors want to think like this.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be more efficient. They want to be more effective. They want to get their bands better, hands down. Do they have the skill set to step back and think like this? I don't know, Chris.
And the reason why I asked that is one of the things I wanted to do as the new like president coming in this year, I actually made it a point to sit down with both leadership groups within our band. And when I say both leadership groups, I took the opportunity to meet and sit down with both of our marching band leadership as well as our band council. The main reason why is I want them to understand how important they are. And though I don't drive what they do, the directors do, the boosters can still help support some of the efforts that they want to be successful at. So I could tell you, sitting in those meetings, for example, one of the things I thought was fantastic that I heard a kid say was, I think we should do more conditioning than we did last year. I think by the time we got to the end of the season, it was hard for people to get through the full run because, we didn't prepare ourselves well enough. I loved hearing that out of the mouth of a 16-year-old
Right.
who's responsible enough to say, I think our program could improve if we spend more time on this thing. So even looking to the kids themselves, I guess. Do you trust them?
It's a skill set. But to your point, so when you said, well, who teaches them to think that way? Like in corporate America, you have a direct supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go and they would say, Scott, I think you could be 14% more efficient if you did this. Scott, I need you to take your budget and do this. Scott, I need you to allocate X amount of your resources to this committee. You don't have that in education because your direct supervisor, your principal, your assistant principal has no idea what you're doing.
Right.
And so you really are left to your own devices.
Sure.
When it comes to trying to figure these things out. And I do believe every director has the desire. I do not believe every director has the skill set.
Sure.
And I don't know how to solve for that.
So again, I guess we talked about this in bad band directors. Is this something that if a parent sees an opportunity, again, do they say, hey, as a data analyst, hey, director, I think I could help you by helping you organize information in this way so you can look at it differently. Like, is that overstepping in that case? Or do you think in that kind of example, are we overstepping the booster boundaries by saying, hey, band director, even with this, like, I'm pretty good at this?
I think if you're just sharing information and not opinions.
Okay.
After one of the circuit coordinators after last year's show, I made a comment about soloists. There's too much soloists, not enough ensemble. And he shared with me, there's a guy who charts it for Grand Nationals and for DCI on an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any opinions.
Right.
He just says, here's a spreadsheet
True.
of how every second was used in a DCI championship show. And I was like, oh my God, I would design a show so differently having seen this spreadsheet.
Right.
He doesn't tell me you need more ballad, less ensemble, more soloists, but he just presents the data for me to consume. So I would say if you're presenting data, let me help you analyze your minutes. Let me help you use AI to think through a different rehearsal schedule.
Right.
One of the things I was talking about with someone else, I said, if I went back to teaching, here would be my rehearsal schedule. And they said, well, why would you do Thursday afternoons? I said, the JV football team's away. It frees up a football field. And they went, I never thought about the JV football team. And I'm like, I think about that.
Right.
My mind just thinks that way.
Do you think that, again, so the question I have is it not that I'm going to solve for this today or tomorrow or the next day, but yeah, if the opportunity existed for somebody to help, again, a band director say, this is how it broke down for you. You spent X amount of hours in sectionals, X amount of hours in drill, yada, 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 and this was your outcome. Do you think that at least, because again, otherwise I talked about, I'm somebody who doesn't like to make decisions anecdotally. Isn't that really what it is?
Yeah, 100%.
Like
but what
this.
I would say instead
like
of,
that.
I would say, would you like me to break down your rehearsal
Sorry, I'm not.
schedule?
Yeah, I'm not forcing it on anybody. But I'm saying, if you were a band director, would you not see value in somebody literally being able to? Not only that, but let me ask you a question: how many band directors do you think have the full pull-through rate of, hey, I had this many kids start from 9th grade and graduate in my band? Like,
I think very few actually think that way.
Like attrition rates.
I think,
for example,
they think anecdotally of, oh yeah, not everyone finished that started 4 years ago, 85% of band directors, but only 15% of band directors would say, I'm year over year 3.7 drop% rate. I'm over 2 years, I'm 4.7% dropout rate. After 3, I'm 5.8. And over a 4-year cycle, 93.7% of the kids who start with me finish with me.
Right.
And then in color guard, it's this number. And then in I think almost nobody does.
So I think the problem, and I understand from the band director side of things, again, we know they don't have the time to put that together. They don't have the time to put that together. But again, if there's a way to help automate a processing, make that available to those people, I'm one of those people that I'm like, God, I would love to find a way to help close that gap. To your point, not because I think I want you to make a decision based on what I'm telling you. It's here's the information. I feel like you can be more, educated in even what you want to do if you have this information. Kids
are going to be kids. B flat's going to be B flat. Drill's going to be drill. What makes you grow or be successful is the word efficiency.
Sure.
You're not getting more time. We have stretched. I mean, I believe Chandler, our district, not our band, our district has the longest marching band season in the United States of America. We start earlier than anyone else because we live in Arizona. Because of our nice weather, we go later. We cannot expand this activity one more day. I firmly believe that.
Right.
We've got to learn to be more efficient.
Yeah.
And efficiency is about data. It's about numbers. It's about knowledge. And that's what I think band directors are doing now. But to your point, I don't know how they're doing it.
Right. I don't know where that information is being tracked for them or presented to them or any of that stuff. And
if you're lucky enough to live in a big district in Texas and you have 3 assistants who can walk in your door and go, I think we can do brass warm-ups quicker. But that's true in a very small segment of Indiana, maybe California, Texas, and Florida. To the rest of the country, you're a solopreneur.
Yeah.
And so you're winging it.
I could tell you, and this is just the way my mind works. If I was a band director, I would even want to know what the percentage of kids fall out again from junior high to high school. How many kids make it through the junior high band process and continue band in high school?
Absolutely.
Those are all things, because in my mind, that's where I start fixing it. Anyway, we're going down a whole different path here, but to the point is, I just want to say, if there's anything that people can do to help, that's why I'm asking the question, is to your point, not forcing opinions on, but in support of the band director's planning.
Providing data.
Yeah.
And I do think, we talked in a booster episode about having a band director whisperer.
Yeah.
And so, that's the person, go to them and go, hey, I know you're grousing about being 14th place. Bill over here is an efficiency expert for McKesson. You want him to take a crack at your schedule? Yeah. Like that kind of thing. I think it would be welcomed by most band directors, and I think it would be helpful because this activity has far exceeded the scope and skill set of a band director's training, and they either rise with it or they drown.
Yeah. And again, I think we talked about this. I don't know. It might've been band directors, but man, I just think that anything we can do to help those directors focus on working with those kids and not taking time away to do all these other things. So.
We talked about the kids, and we talked about a lot of it's dependent upon the goals, the rigor, the program, the start, the end date, the band camp date, whether you live in Texas, 8 hour, August 1st. It's very different. There's no one way to approach summer rehearsals. And we talked about the boosters, and we talked about it's aspirational. You want to design to the goals first and budget to them second.
Yeah.
But it's about staffing and budgeting.
Sure.
And then we talked about, it's really the same thing for the band director. It's just a different budget and a different way to interpret staffing. But we're all looking for optimal efficiencies to get the most out of the people and dollars that we have in the shortest period of time.
No, I think that's a great way to look at it, because if you're trying to do this if you're trying to do this in August or September, it's probably too late.
Oh, it's way too late.
It's probably too late.
Once you're in the thick of it, of actually teaching drill and music, that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
I mean, you're running around, with your hair on fire from that point to the end of the season.
And never mind results, Scott, because I know we talk about the results are not the goal, right? They're a potential outcome of that efficiency.
They're
right?
a throughput.
They're a throughput, right?
Yep.
But even just outside of that, even not a band that's achieving for first place, just the experience and the stress that will exist within those rehearsals and whatnot for those kids will make it a not fun experience. So,
well, and I will tell you, using a personal example, because we had just a brutal summer, and our band director went through this process, looked at camp and thought, if I do an A-B day, and A is everyone all day, and B is we stagger the arrivals, we do X, Y, and Z, our band was significantly better this year with less rehearsal time.
Right.
He was more, in my opinion, it was a more efficient and effective way to manage his staff.
Sure.
And so
Absolutely.
if you folks, if I think the one takeaway from this episode for me is that take a step back, whether it's a Gantt chart, whether it's a budgeting document, whether it's goals and philosophies, but take a step away from the day-to-day operations and think about, is this the most efficient way to do this? Whether it's a fundraiser,
Sure.
and I'll give you an example, the car wash thing.
Yeah.
My band, when I got to my second band, they did car washes. And I literally broke down. I go, it's less than minimum wage per child.
Yeah.
Just do the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You have, we had 130 kids there for 3 hours. That means you have 3,000 man hours. We raised $3,000. It's $1 an hour per child. And that's fine. If you believe in buy-in and camaraderie and I have no problem with that. But
there's another part of it.
If you're doing it to raise money, that is not the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And so that's my point. It has nothing to do with a car wash or whatnot. It's taking a step back and being a data analyst.
Right.
And looking at the numbers and saying, operationally, are we getting the most out of this dollar? Operationally, are we getting the most out of this person?
Yeah. Because again, I think, and we haven't even necessarily gone into this level of detail, because really everything we're talking about right now is logistics, kind of even skipping over a lot of what we talked about going into the beginning of last summer, which is how much the culture matters as well. So a lot of this does play into that. I think we're just using different language this time, and we talk about the planning and the logistics, but the foundation, which is the culture of this, is still the outcome of the result of this planning and how you get to use that time.
Yeah. So. And the thing is, culture is the most important reason you do summer band. Culture is the most important thing you do in band camp. It's not, but those efficiencies help you achieve that culture quicker.
Yes.
With less collateral damage.
Yes.
And frankly, that's just kids quitting.
Yeah.
Or parents becoming disengaged,
right.
Or whatever, money being a barrier to being able to do something.
Right.
So, this is not the primary focus of what you do for the summer, but it's something that I don't think people talk a lot about.
Right. No, absolutely. And unless you're involved in that way directly, again, you just may not be aware of what's happening behind the scenes. But I would encourage everyone to get involved in their boosters. Look, if you do committees, if you do tasks, if you whatever it might be, get involved, find a way to at least volunteer. And maybe if you have some insight that can help your group, please bring your expertise and your knowledge to that group of boosters, because a lot of times they're following processes that they followed that have worked for them in the past because they've worked in the past. It's not about innovation all the time. It's about, hey, this worked, so we're going to do it this way.
Because you don't have people in the position long enough to innovate. They do it for 1 or 2 years. They move on to the next task, the next job.
You're not wrong. And that's where I think, again, you got to look at your infrastructure in terms of the way of your organization is set up a little differently so you can help that progress year after year. But that's that's a different booster conversation probably. But I think that getting involved is absolutely the first step. So please do. We've talked about how much it'll do for you and your kid in the process, but you don't realize, again, how much you can bring to that program and what your expertise can do for the band and the planning and the execution of it and all that fun stuff as well. So I feel like I was going to make another point, and I'm just...
Think about it, folks. Staffing and budgeting, and the optimal word is efficiencies.
Yeah.
Everything you do, we're feeding the band tonight. How can we do it the most cost-effective and the quickest, most efficient way possible, not in just terms of saving money, but how do we feed the most kids in the shortest period of time so they can be at home for a longer period of time before they've got, it's all about efficiencies.
Yeah. And as we put together some additional kind of bonus episodes during the summer, if you have thoughts about what we're saying, if you have ideas that you would like us to share with other people, please reach out to us and let us know. Send an email to feedback@banddadspodcast.com. We want to hear your ideas. What have you done with your band that has been successful in the past? Or maybe it's a lesson that you learned. We used to do it this way. We pivoted. We started doing it this way, and the results were boundless. I would love to hear stories from people in the field themselves, because there's probably a million ways to do things that people just don't think of because, you have different people who approach processes differently. So share those stories, share your feedback with us. Or if you have a particular challenge that you would like to maybe help get some feedback or answers on, we would love to have a conversation with you as well. Again, best way to do that is email. Shoot us an email, send us your stories, send us your comments, send us your questions to feedback@banddadspodcast.com. And Scott and I can reconvene and look through some of that feedback and see what we can do to help guide you. Because again, you got to get this stuff done now, because honestly, if you don't get this feedback until August or September,
it's too late.
well, it'll be too late for this season.
Yeah.
So it really won't do you much good now, but it'll be something that you'll have to hold with you and carry until either, the next Marching Band season, maybe the winter season, if you still have plenty to do for that. But hey, I can tell you that's part of that budgeting conversation we had last week. We're talking about what our winter show is going to cost, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about what our props are going to be for, this is a full year process. It's a full fiscal year budget, right? So anyway, reach out to us, let us know, join us on social media. We're going to do some good stuff over the summer. So join us on TikTok at the Banddads Pod, Banddads Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And Scott, what are your plans for the summer? You on the road? You're going to be around the country visiting people?
This is I have 2 busy seasons, and this is one of them. It's summer band camp season, and it's a running gun from now till about October 15th. So I get to see a lot of great kids and a lot of great teachers and see and experience a lot of great things.
Well, if you guys run into Scott Lang over the summer, send us a note as well. We'd love to hear from you. Wherever you are in the country, if Scott Lang makes a stop at your school or with your boosters, send us a note and tell us about your delightful interaction with Scott Lang, because he feels he is delightful. So
absolutely.
Let's support his ego.
I'm
make
all
him
in
feel
favor
good
of
about
being
it.
efficient in that. I'm Scott Lang.
Chris Flynn.
With
Banddads. Thanks, folks.
Banddads at 3! 1, 2, 3, Banddads!
The Banddads are a proud partner of Booster Hub. Simplify your Booster Club's management with Booster Hub's all-in-one tools. Find out more and get your free trial started by visiting boosterhub.com. The Banddads Podcast is a 5 Deuce Media production. For more information, please visit 5deucemedia.com. For more information on Scott Lang leadership and solutions for music education, please visit scottlang.net.